I watch the Newbie, so you don't have to. I don't participate in boycotts, trends, campaigns, social or political movements. If you are boycotting, that's great for you. You do you, boo. I'm gonna do me. Honestly, at this point, this is community service. So let's get into this reaction summary. I want to point out that Mint is the host for the show and has not been promoting or posting about it at all. She's not even following Nine Star on social media, and Faye actually follows her. So I think that in itself is very telling about this whole situation. But let's actually get into the actual show. So, of course, each show or each episode is split into 4 parts. So, part 1, the episode kicks off with kind of lighthearted and chaotic game where the contestants rush to empty inflatable pool. It's an empty inflatable pool, trying to grab and put on animal costumes while playing the game red light, green light. As the game progresses, players are eliminated, and the comedic music kind of adds to the silliness of the segment of the section of the game. For me personally, I'm a little confused by that because I'm like, oh, is this a comedy show now? I know it's kind of a reality show, but this is giving like comedy. The winners of the game are rewarded with a special breakfast, while the losers receive like a simple meal, and it's supposed to be like this contrast with like the humor, like they all sit together in the same room, and the 3 people who have the fancy breakfasts or 2 people who have the fancy breakfast are like just sitting there talking to each other eating, and then the other people are eating their very plain simple breakfast right next to them, and they're like kind of going back and forth talking about it. And I'm like, that's supposed to be like funny. They cut to 4-Wheel during a confessional and put her name in English on the screen, but above it is a section for the Thai spelling. But there's nothing there. It's completely blank. So someone who was doing the post-production completely missed this section and didn't add the person's name. This is literally like the 3rd issue we've had in this show. Previous episodes, we had a voiceover that wasn't translated into English, and then we had a section where a contestant was completely muted during a confessional. So this is like the 3rd time there's been issues. This is the 5th episode. We also, even in episode 4, Faye's sound was really weird and off. Like, it's really strange. So, considering that Moondew Productions publicly parted ways with 9 Star recently, it's likely that the post-production is not being done by Moondew, and that it's like some last-minute hire. So that could be possibly why. But it's like, if this is your final product and you're putting it out and it's this sloppy, that's very telling about what's going on behind the scenes. Let's cut to part 2. Later in the episode, there's an acting challenge that takes kind of like center stage for the rest of the episode. Lukkeaw, who's that acting coach, she returns as a host alongside Yoko. The contestants are like randomly paired by pulling like matching cards to see who they're going to pair with, and then they must improvise like scenes together. Before the challenge begins, Lukkeaw gives an extensive 3-minute explanation of the task that they're doing without Yoko there. Then Yoko comes out and she's like the guest, host or whatever, or guest judge. And then when she's there, Lukkeaw spends another 3 minutes discussing what they're going to be doing, and that Yoko and her are going to do like an example for them, right? It just feels really overly long and just like too much information. And I'm like, what are we, like, as a viewer, I was like, this is so boring. Why do I care about this? She and Yoko end up performing an example scene, which I would say is actually really well acted. Like, Yoko gets into this really dramatic state and it produces tears. It's like, it's pretty impressive, but it also drags on for 3 minutes, which I think is really too long. Like I said, Yoko had some really great, she's showing what she can do, but it's like, why is this edited this way? It's like, it's really not that interesting. But that is the part 2, and it just ends, right? We go to part, as this challenge unfolds, Lukkeaw and Yoko, they meet with each pair beforehand to kind of give them a little bit of guidance, and then when they are actually performing, it's like a judging panel. It's Lukkeaw, Yoko, and Mint who's there. And I have to say, it's kind of weird because Mint doesn't give a lot of feedback. She's just kind of there, to be honest. So each pair is given 3 minutes as well to perform their performance, and the other fellow contestants watch them do it. Feedback is delivered immediately after each performance. Noom and Holly go first and receive brutally honest criticism with like no positive reinforcement. Holly takes the information, like she takes that criticism and sees it as motivation to improve. Niall and Idea, they're next. also receiving really harsh criticism, and Niall is like visibly disappointed and wishes she could have another chance to perform. Next up is the two Graces. I forgot one of the Graces' name. The other one is Gala Grace, the one everyone hates. They start their scene speaking too quietly. At one, they had to like tell them to like raise their voices, and at one point, Gala Grace almost drops a laptop that's like a prop, and you can tell like look on her face. She is so irritated with her. So funny. And the judges mostly delivered negative feedback, actually. I would say there was a little bit of positive comments, but most of it was negative. Go to part 4. The pattern continues with Crit Grace and 4-Wheel. Grace receives critical feedback, including comments about like her hair was in the way, they couldn't really see her, and they were like telling her during the performance to like move her hair out of the way, while 4-Wheel gets overwhelmingly positive remarks. In the post-performance interview, like the confessional, Grace expressed gratitude for the experience, acknowledging that acting is new to her and she wants to improve. Peem and Sorrow perform next. They're the last two pairs, and Peem receives mostly positive feedback, while Sorrow gets like a mix of praise and critique. I would say like Lukkeaw was the most critical, obviously, because she's an acting coach. She's going to give like that kind of feedback, and even came across as like irritated a lot of them and their acting and kind of, I don't know, it just seemed a little weird and off. Yoko was also quite negative, but like more soft in her delivery of that feedback. She gave a lot more detail to the contestants about like what they were doing, what she was saying and wasn't saying. Mint also gave feedback, but I don't really remember her feedback. She rarely gave any, and it wasn't like super like critical or anything. It was just kind of like general feedback. All of this criticism is a stark contrast to the previous episode when Faye was on it and she was helping them with, you know, taking poses. She was so much more lenient and positive in her feedback. She rarely gave anyone any criticism. Even that criticism was like kind of light in a way. Like she worded it in a way that wasn't really like critical. So it was just like so weird to see like that episode happen, and then right after have this episode where Yoko and Lukkeaw were just kind of like very negative. It just didn't seem like really warm or like open. It's just like, oh, we're just gonna tell you how bad you guys are at acting, even though most of you have no acting skills. Ultimately, Peem and Sorrow are declared the winners of this game. They earn a private room, with the whole private bathroom, and two are very excited. They're visibly excited, and they're celebrating their win because they're excited that they're going to have the luxury of the private room. They're super jazzed about that. Later in the evening, they bring their camera, like a instant 360 camera with them to visit the other contestants in the other room, and they share some fun, playful moments with them. It's like lighthearted energy. The lighthearted energy kind of contrasts a lot with the earlier intensity of the acting challenge. So it's another like tonal shift. Like the first part 1 was like comedy, and then part 2 and 3 are like super serious and like critical, and then part 4 is like, oh, lightheartedness, this is like the last night we're in the house, let's like hang out and like have a good time and like be sentimental. And it was like so jarring of a shift. I was like, what is going on? As the episode wraps up, a teaser for the next installment hints at like more challenges ahead, including a dance performance, outdoor missions, and contestants voting on each other. However, these abrupt tonal shifts throughout the episode just makes this feel so inconsistent, and like I don't really want to watch this. I've said this before. I don't really want to watch this, but I'm watching it because it's like a car wreck. You just can't turn away. You gotta see it continuing to get bad and worse, and that's what I'm doing. Despite being framed as like a comedic episode, it only delivers a few genuine laughs, actually. So it's just so, like I said, it's just so inconsistent. Games in each episode seem to be getting increasingly strange, and the acting challenge in particular feels less like a skill building exercise and more like a setup for failure, in my opinion, where the contestants are like, they, with little acting experience, are expected to improvise under pressure, and the structure almost seems like designed for humiliation rather than assessing skill sets, making like the premise kind of questionable. I'm just like, what is the point of this? I don't really get it. Viewership for this is atrocious, as always. I watched this like 15 hours after it came out, but now it's been out for like 2 days, and so but the numbers are actually quite similar, even though it's been 2 days. The difference about a day and a half difference. So part 1 focused on like that comedic game that had 8,000 views when I first watched it. At this point in time, it has under 10,000 views. Part 2, which Yoko is in the thumbnail, that gets a significant spike. It was like 39,000 views when I watched it. Right now, it's 52,000 views, indicating basically, that when she's on the thumbnail, or if Yoko or Faye is on a thumbnail, a lot of people are going to watch the video because they care about that. But even still, compared to the other works that they do, the vlog, this is like nothing compared to that. But people are watching when they're on the thumbnail. Now, Part 3 is really interesting because part 3, despite Yoko being in the entire episode, she's in the entire episode, she's not in the thumbnail. That dropped to 12K views for me at the time. And right now, it's only at 16K views currently. And then for part 4, again, Yoko is mostly in this video. It's like she's in 3/4 of this video, but it had 8,000 views when I watched it, and right now it has 12. So very clear, these numbers highlight a clear audience preference for content directly tied to either Yoko or Faye. Now, Faye is no longer in with the company. They may still have her on the show later on, so they are going to probably put her in thumbnails. But right now, it's very clear they need to change their thumbnail strategy. If they want to get numbers on the newbie, they need to put, if Yoko or Faye are in the video, they need to put Yoko and Faye in the thumbnail for each section. Each part. That's the only way they're going to get views. In addition, the episode's editing and sound effects resemble those used in a vlog featuring Faye and Yoko, leading to speculation about like why did Juan decide to shift her next project toward like this variety show kind of style. Like the choice is really puzzling, especially considering they did Blank, right, which was a book and it was a part of a book universe, and one of those books had already been done. So there was already a built-in fan base for Blank, right? For people to come over from Gap if they were interested. There was already some pull there, right? This was already content that was made. Of course, you got to write the script, and that's a little bit different. But for the most part, this is like a baked idea, and Juan, put it together to get this, to be made. But now we're switching to a point where Juan wants to do her own visions of what she sees happening in the future for her content, and this was her first idea, and it was the Newbie, was to make a variety reality show to find new people to join the team for their future projects. And that is like super, like, what? That's very confusing. Like, why did you think this would be a great thing to do next? Almost a year later, a whole year has passed since the first Blank episodes came out. It's a huge success, and you decide, yeah, I'm going to focus on this. This seems like a good idea. Also, what's even more puzzling is, well, it's not puzzling. It also makes a lot more sense, considering that we know that Faye had been frustrated with 9star for a few months. They admitted that she wasn't happy for a while. So it's possible that Faye noticed that this shift was while they were filming the vlog. They're like, no, she noticed, like, okay, we're doing this like funny variety vlog kind of thing, and then now I'm shooting for the Newbie, and the Newbie has a similar style. So she's like, maybe she had realized that, like, even more so, like, the company was not aligned with what she saw for herself in the future, and this was just another thing on the growing list of issues she had with the company that kind of sent her over the edge. And I kind of think that them pulling out of 4E was her last straw. She was like, okay, you're just wasting my time and ruining my career now. Like, what are we doing here? At the end of the day, the show is boring. And it has a lot of flaws. It doesn't have a lot of flaws. It has some flaws. It's just boring. It's not a terrible show. It's just, there's no real incentive for me to watch it as a person who's into FayeYoko, as a person who is just a layperson coming across GLs. Why would I watch this? I've said this every time I do a review of it. It's like, there's no incentive for me to watch this. This is boring. And except for when FayeYoko have made guest appearances. Those are the only times where I got excited. And this was super disappointing because Yoko's appearance in this is mainly her giving critiques and being negative. And it's not her fault. This was just the premise of how she was supposed to come on the show, was to get feedback for acting. But it's all relatively negative. So it's just like, why? Kind of putting her out there in a negative light, to be honest. Like, this is the representation you want of people for Yoko. Like, oh yeah, she's great. She can do a really dramatic scene in 3 minutes. She has it down. She can give this fantastic performance. But also, like, the only other example of her is her giving negative feedback. Make it make sense, guys. Make it make sense. Anywho, that's the video. I just wanted to share the Newbie. As I do, I'm gonna watch every episode. I feel for myself. I'm gonna watch every damn episode, and I'm gonna give you guys the reactions of it, even if they're terrible. I have to, guys. If you like this content, like, share, subscribe, comment, do the things. I'm trying to get to 500 subscribers. I'm really excited to hit that number, and then hopefully I can get to 1,000. Hopefully by the end of the year. I do this out of the goodness of my heart. I'm not making any money, guys. This is just time and effort and hobby, and this channel was supposed to be about reacting to shows as well, but I just don't have time to be doing that, and it seems very obvious that you guys like the drama. you like that I put out like updates about all the dramatic things that are happening. So we'll see what happens with this channel, if I'm going to continue to do that, if I'm going to pivot a little bit. I'm obviously not going to be talking about FayeYoko. I told you guys this already. I'm going to be focusing on Faye more so, and then I will try to shift the content where it makes sense to bring in other GL stuff. But I don't know if I'm going to do reactions to shows, because it's very clear that you guys don't care about that. You don't watch those videos, so we'll see what I come up with. If you have any suggestions, I mean, leave them in the comments. What do you guys want to see? I will probably be open to that if you give me some feedback. But yeah, next up is going to be my reaction to the press conference. I was waiting for subtitled information about the last section, because I had the first 3/4 of it, but the last section I didn't have. And Nine Star dropped another goddamn bomb on us and put out the entire press conference on their YouTube channel. Ew, so slimy. So like, what? Why would you do that? They have very questionable business decisions. But anyway, it's there and it has English subtitles. So I will do a reaction to that very, very soon. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.
helt op. Jeg har ingen følelse for dem, når jeg fucked up. Og jeg vil ikke dø, men de tester non-stop. Hvis det ikke betyder
jeg er den koks. Mod systemet vi bokser. De andre hopper som lopper, imens jeg også er en hosser.